friends, welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we take the movies we love, break them apart to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Criffy, joined as always by my friend, the third Beatle to the Film Alchemist podcast, the newborn, Carmelita Valdez McKoy. Welcome.
Hi, friend.
That'll make sense in a minute. She's actually a full-grown lady, just in case you're not on YouTube. All right, before today's wonderful continuation of Carmelita's guest curation, the pod gets a new face, we have some business. Everyone, it's official. We are on Patreon, patreon.com/filmalchemistpod, the absolute most important and best way to support this show and probably a lot of podcasts like us. If you can find it in your generous hearts, for just a couple dollars a month, you can really help us out over here. It means the world to podcasts of our size. So thank you if you can. We have a huge Patreon exclusive library. We've got commentaries, mini-series. You can even have us program a double feature for you. All kinds of good stuff. We work very hard to try to make that worth your while. We have a wonderful community of friends and patrons over there. We would love for you to join if you're able. The YouTube is Film Alchemist. Go subscribe over there. We're on all the socials, including now TikTok. We'd love to see you guys over there. Help us with all this algorithms work that we've got to do. We're easy to get a hold of. The email, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. Make sure you're leaving 5-star ratings and reviews. Make sure you go to misfitparade.net. We have one of the only .nets left after the 90s. Make sure you go over there and join the parade. Our film, Sugar Tits, is out making its festival rounds. We have other good stuff you can find on our Misfit Parade YouTube and our social channels. We are about, by the time this hits, we may already have started shooting our first feature film. It's happening at the end of July. I don't know schedule-wise when this hits, but this is all exciting stuff, so go join the parade at misfitparade.net. Also, make sure to keep your eye out for all the video stand-up work I am doing over at Looper if you want to hear me talk more movies and see my face while I do it. That's the trick. All right, Carmelita.
Hair. Amazing hair.
Good hair. Some days you have good hair days, some days not as much, but it's nice. Some guy did call me, he always comments on all the videos on Looper, and he goes, "Get out of the videos, you curly-haired weirdo." And I laugh every time. I'm like, well, he's not wrong. He's not wrong. He identified it exactly right, even though he's mean. Okay, we continue. The pod gets a new face curation. Today we will be talking about 1966, John Frankenheimer's Seconds, starring one Rock Hudson. Carmelita, would you like to introduce the movie you chose today?
Yeah, this is the best Twilight Zone episode that was not a Twilight Zone episode.
It is exactly a Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah. So the premise of this film is a middle-aged banker, married, lives in the suburbs, has everything that the American dream has promised, but he's miserable.
Yeah.
And this company, this shadowy company, offers him an opportunity to have a complete physical rehaul.
Yeah.
Get a new face, get a new life.
Yeah.
Live his dream in Malibu, California in the 60s.
Yeah. The economics of this movie are bizarre.
They are.
Because you're like, what a fucking glow up. Like, that's not, now I live in a fucking beachside art studio in Malibu. Like, I know it's the 60s, so the property values are probably not what they are today, but I was like,
right.
God damn.
Yeah. And, you know, this is a story all about what if you get what you wish for? Will you be happier?
Yeah.
If you get everything you thought you wanted?
Yeah, Alex and I have talked about this many times on the show. It's like our great fear is guys still pursuing the creative dream, right? Is that, let's say Spielberg came down from the mountain and said, here's your big-ass movie check. I'll produce your next movie, all that. You finally achieve everything you've dreamed of since you were a kid, and you wake up the next day and you're still fucking unfulfilled, sad, miserable. And you're like, well, what do I do now? I did the dream, and it's not, like, it hasn't cured all the ails, right?
Yeah.
And so this becomes a very, it's such a beautifully orchestrated piece, right? It's hard to even know where to start. Like, it's just such a kind of visceral film, right? A lot more visceral, I feel like, than a lot of movies of this era. a lot more visceral than a lot of the Twilight Zone episodes. I think that's the benefit of this, getting the Frankenheimer treatment over just being a Twilight Zone episode. You could make the case that there are moments where it kind of really drags out the administrative elements of the movie. Where you're like, we probably could have condensed that. I get it. New body, new life. We don't have to like talk about every clause we're signing. But it uses the filmmaking tools to such powerful effect so often. Right? So what about this movie really like leapt out at you? Why was this the one you wanted to talk about?
I mean, when I thought of this curation idea, the theme, this was one of the big drivers to get the chance to talk about Seconds. Because it's this, and we've talked about Suture this month, and this movie is able to do something that Suture couldn't. This gets all of that heady, high concept piece, but also lands the very visceral experience. Like you feel the disorientation.
Oh, for sure.
Of Arthur. You feel the tension as he's being drawn in to see what the company wants to offer him.
Yeah.
And the moments where he slowly starts to realize the bargain with the devil that he's made.
Absolutely. It's also an infinitely more fun ride than Sutures, right? Like it really is able to kind of manipulate every knob. So like right from the start, we've got this kind of, disoriented face. It looks like we're under a surgery lamp. So right away you're sitting there. Then we're stalking through a train station. It feels like we're being hunted.
Yeah.
The music in this is wonderful. The score is so tense and wrought throughout times that your pulse is pounding, right? When that guy just says his name, he gets on a train, you're like, oh my God, what's happening? And then all of a sudden he just gets in a car with his old lady wife. And it's just like, how was your day? Fine. And you're like, even that moment is so jarring and disorienting. You're like, wait, what the fuck did he just say? And you watch him like something's going on. There have been these calls. We see that he gets a call from an old college tennis mate who's died, right? And he's like, you don't just get to come back. What's up? And he's like, do this. Go to this place. Walk through this slaughterhouse. You're like, what is happening in this fucking movie?
Yeah.
You're so jarred. And then it's almost like the movie hits a wall once we get to the office. Where this is where we kind of take a long stretch to kind of do some administrative work in this.
But it's kind of Kafka, right? Like
it is.
Let's go through all the Byzantine, weird, bureaucratic stuff.
Well, they also have that like really jarring, almost like Salvador Dali nightmare. Right when he gets there. We learn later that they drugged him so that they could film what looks like him raping a beautiful blonde lady in a hotel in case he tries to back out.
Yeah.
So there is like an extra like nefarious fanged element to the company that doesn't come out as you just see all these suits come out and just, do their business. So it is a pretty nefarious setup. I will say, I think one of the understated scenes that really has stuck with me, having gotten a little away from watching this, that scene of him, they're in their twin beds, right? And he's kind of snapping at his wife. And he's just like, you don't get what I'm going through, right? Or something. And she kind of drops that cold marriage line. It's like, you don't understand. She goes, I perfectly do, right? Whatever. Like just kind of stone cold marriage shit. Watching her kind of slide into his bed and try to help him, try to comfort him, right? And there's like this kind of old person kiss, the kind of thing you don't see a lot in movies, right? This kind of lovely moment between two aging people. In watching him go blank and vacant and stare off in the distance and watching her kind of slide back out. This understated realization that this life is not going to be better, right? It's really early in the movie, so I think it doesn't hit with as much weight until you finish it.
Yeah.
But there is so much, they really do a great job in every scene. One of the things you notice early is when he's in his original old man form, how close the fucking camera is to his face all the time. Just this sweaty, bulbous face, like really putting us right up in his grill. As if they want to tattoo that, face onto our brain. And then once we get to the company, we kind of pull back and have a chance to reset. But the movie is so visceral often. What did you make of the techniques they were employing?
Yeah, no, I love that. I love all those real tight shots and all the kind of disorienting angles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, something about this movie that I think if I had, a younger person seeing this, you're like, oh, wow, trippy, whatever, surreal, very cool. All of that is true. I think getting further on in adulthood,
Yeah.
now in middle age, like this takes on another dimension of, how disorienting it is when you're going into a different phase of your life and you're looking back and you're trying to look forward and you're trying to piece together, what is my life? Is this what I want it to be? What do I want it to look like? How do you up and change? In the case of our character at 50, which now that I'm in my mid 40s, I'm like, 50 is not old, right?
Yeah, I'm in the 40 club now too, right? And you hit this point where, as the movie plays a lot with reflections, right? Seeing yourself in reflection, which is a classic visual representation of having to design yourself, to have authorship of your own self. There is this thing that we hit now at this age where, what has it all been worth? I think a lot of us have wish fulfillment ideas of what if we could switch places with someone. Now we're at that age where it's like, could I just switch places with my younger self, right? It's a thing me and my wife talk about, that scene from About Time. I love that movie, where he goes back to save his sister, but his daughter has changed, right? Like now his kid who he fell in love with is a different kid.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how far back would I go to take my brain and get more years to like achieve what I want to achieve? And it's that happiness equation. And as we're hitting this point, you kind of start doing the math and you're like, would my family be all right? What if they're all right and I get to go be all right? It's kind of this, I saw a TikTok, right, of that comedian Jimmy Carr, and he talks about how in the West we have life dysmorphia. They're like, we just forget how good every day is, right? And he has this simple example of like everyone we admire from like 100 years ago, those people had never had a warm shower. You know what I mean? Like that we have all of these comforts and food security, hopefully, right? A lot of people, not everyone. But that we create this sickness of the mind that's always telling us what our life is lacking and not what we have. And this movie kind of perfectly sits in that window and watches this guy. And you're like, you could say objectively, like, he trades up, man. He gets to be Rock Hudson. Like, that's an incredible middle-aged man transformation, right? He gets to be an artist who bangs models in Malibu.
And goes to Bacchanal, fucking Dionysian.
Dude, Dionysian Grape orgies. I was like, fuck, I lived out there. No one ever invited me. I was ready.
I know.
See, that's the problem. I wanted it too much.
Yeah.
If you want the orgy invite too much,
You're
that's
not
a
gonna
red
get
flag. Yeah, it's like being on an HOA. If someone wants to be on an HOA, they should not be allowed. That means they're a rabble rouser. But yeah, so like he gets the fucking trade up.
Mm-hmm.
And we watch him be so miserable for the whole start of this journey. It's actually a kind of inspired choice, right? Because it feels like the movie, once he gets to LA, or Malibu as it were, he would be ecstatic, that he'd just be running through them. He'd be living the high life. But that section of the movie slows it down, and we see this real somber journey, right? It even starts in the plane when the stewardess or flight attendant looks at him for so long that he freaks the fuck out, and we get another of those amazing kind of close mirror shots.
Mm-hmm.
But you see this, him struggling he can't, why do you think he can't sit and enjoy this section of the movie? Because it feels like this is the wish you make. And goddamn, they even say the doctor's like, he's like, this is your finest work, right? Evil Colonel Sanders. This is your finest work, doctor. And you're like, yeah, dude, you crushed it. Like, because his wife gets to keep the house, presumably a lot of the money. So like for 30 grand, you got Rock Hudson as an artist in Mount. Like, this is like the dream. Mm-hmm. But we never really see him. There's not really a scene of a pure, unadulterated enjoyment. Why do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I think there's a couple of things at play here, possibly. I think part of it could be he's, and this is a very American thing, and I'm sure there are other countries where culturally this is a thing, but it's a big thing in America. So much, and it gets addressed later in the film when he explains why he wants to be reborn again after this failed new life. All of this, everything is about how you appear,
Mhm.
the trappings. Your job defines you and the way it makes you look and what other people think about what you do for a living. The way you look on the outside. Are you attractive? Do people find you sexually desirable?
Mhm.
It's like all of these things are so surface, and he's spent his entire life trying to get all these surface things.
Mhm.
He hasn't, I think, and maybe this is me reading too much, he never did any internal self-reflection.
No.
And so it doesn't matter where you put him, he's still himself. And he's still someone who's emotionally shut down, who has trouble connecting with other people, who's self-conscious,
Yeah.
who it seems like, I mean, he
Because we
does.
never see him take it for a ride until
No.
he gets thrown in against his will to the
Yes.
Grape Orgy. And then he's like, this is kind of cool. I've never done this. And he
Right.
smiles. But even that, the next scene we see is essentially him getting absolutely shit-faced and wrecked
Yeah.
to the point where no one is enjoying his company. So there
Mm-hmm.
is not this window of, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you do like a story, I'm trying to think of a story that's analogous, like Flowers for Algernon, right?
Mm.
When you hit that point of like, oh my God, now I'm a genius, right? When Charlie
Mm-hmm.
becomes a genius, he gets to do genius shit, right? He gets to live the
Yeah.
life of someone who does that, and he realizes it's fleeting. That becomes kind of the sadness of the story, is it's given and taken away.
Right.
And in this one, I don't feel, like Bradley Cooper in Limitless, right? That's like a Flower for Algernon movie. He gets the joy of being a limitless man for a while,
Right.
right? I think it's one of the kind of brilliant choices of the film is that we don't let him have that.
No.
Because I think most people watching would say, dude, you nailed it. Like, this is a home run. Like, you should love every second of this, right? You got a hot, weird old lady neighbor, right, who's taking care of you. You're doing the orgies. You get to be an artist. And
Yeah,
people
with all these
already like your
glamorous
shit.
people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not like you have to sit and like really learn to be an artist. Like, you're
Well,
already successful.
this is the other part of it, I think, potentially,
Yeah.
is that all of this is handed to Arthur in his new life as Tony. It's all
Right.
handed to him.
Right.
None of it is authentic. He didn't
But
work
he
for
worked
any
hard
of
in his
this.
normal life to get that 30 grand.
He did.
This is kind of the wish problem period in every movie, right?
Right.
Almost every movie that involves wishing is telling us not to do it. Don't make a wish. Don't hope. Don't do that because it's not going to work out, right? There is an inherent slap on the wrist for us trying to jump the line.
Right.
There's no movie where it's like people just start making wishes and everything's actually just better all the time.
No, it's never better.
Maybe Disney's Blank Check, right? Because that's a money wish, right? I don't know. But I think it's the only Wish movie I've ever seen where there's not even a moment. Because this is the other thing. I don't know if you thought this. It feels like a movie where he's kind of dragged into this. Like it never feels like he's not running to that office excited. He's going. There is a moth to the flame element in this, right? The little fly running to the bug zapper. You never see him like torqued to do this. Like he's so fucking excited.
Yeah.
And it is, so it's almost like he's tempted and drawn by his friend who he thinks is having this great post-rebirth life. Come to find out, he's just sitting in a waiting room with all these other sad newborns.
Oh, such a reveal.
Yeah, his post-rebirth is not great, right? The rebirth was
No.
painful. It's not great. And so you get into this position of you almost don't see anyone who has been reborn enjoy it, right? You find out at that party where he's shit-faced and he's kind of hinting at his past life. I'm like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I love that scene when all those men are huddled over him. They're like, who the fuck do you think you are? And the lady who's been like his kind of, sexual Sherpa, she runs in. She's like, shut up. Shut the fuck up. She like can't stand his ass. Come to find out, they're all seconds or newborns as well, right? That they're all company people. So like it's this dream that evil Colonel Sanders talks us to, right? It's the dream that we can fight back the flesh and the age and have this new shot. We don't see anyone happy in this whole fucking movie. Because imagine you're that lady, right? If they were hinting at that she was a second too, that's her job. She just has to be with that fucking asshole. To your point, you can take our dad and put him in Brad Pitt's body. He doesn't have it like Brad Pitt.
No.
He can't go out and do Brad Pitt shit because he's our dad. You know what I mean? Yeah. He doesn't have those years of built-in skills that make a Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
So he
doesn't have that life experience.
No one is happy in this movie. Even evil Colonel Sanders doesn't seem happy because his business model sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, that character who never gets a name and he's credited as the old man, played by Will Geer.
Yeah.
I love him because, he's got that old-timey grandpa. Come sit on my knee, Sonny, and let me tell you a story. And
the uncle at Thanksgiving where they're like, don't sit on his knee.
Right. He's
Never
the soft
sit.
sell.
Yeah, exactly.
He's I'm going to listen to your problems and I'm going to tell you all these heartwarming truisms about life that will get you to go in line with this blackmail scheme.
Yeah, it's a straight up blackmail because he's like, you didn't actually ravage our girl. And I was like, what's her job on the payroll?
Right.
Potential rape victim? Like, that's a fucking wild.
It's wild.
Because we thought it was just a dream. Like, when I saw it, I thought it was him running away from a crime he had committed.
Sure.
I thought he must have done something bad and had to flee, right? Very much like Sutures.
Yeah.
Come to find out, he's just a fucking unfulfilled man. Like, he's fine. Like, he's going to be the bank president. He hasn't done anything bad. His daughter's going to marry a doctor. His wife seems really fucking cool. Like, there's no big crime. Like, I kept waiting for the reveal of, like, oh, well, he embezzled all this money. Nope. Nothing.
It's just an average guy with ennui.
Yeah. Just a normal ass, like, nothing wrong kind of guy.
Yeah. But everything's wrong because he can't be happy.
But see, not everything
with what he's got,
is wrong.
Right?
He's just wrong.
Right.
Right? Because I love the scene where eventually he goes back to his old life and he's kind of sneaking in and he wants to. That was one scene that kind of bothered me. Is that his wife didn't recognize his eyes because she specifically mentioned like how you could look at his eyes and see he wasn't there. He was vacant. He was distant. Maybe what he's been through has changed that. Right. And he's more present now than he ever was with her. That's how she didn't recognize eyes. But this moment, right, where he's kind of talking about him and, you know, how they had this time and whatever. And she's just like, oh, he's been dead in this house for years.
Yeah.
He was a good guy, but he buried himself in work. He was distant. We have kind of led this life of celibate opposition for a long, like he's been dead in this house forever. She doesn't seem sad at all.
No, she got rid of all his stuff.
Yeah. She's just like, bye, bitch. You know,
she's done.
Like she had mourned the loss of this man long before this movie started.
Yeah.
And I think watching him take that in and having to realize that, it is a bit of an epiphany moment for him. But because I think he realizes she's right.
Yes.
And so he starts talking about how important chances are. And with this new chance, he wants to have more choice and he wants it to matter and this and the movie asks a question that I didn't fully understand, which is why doesn't he just be Rock Hudson, go to a new house and just start over with the lesson he learned?
Right. Well, because
the waiting room of the Seconds Men is an interesting set piece to me. Where these men just don't like their new lives, so they're going to go wait for a third life, a third chance.
Yes.
What do you make of this bit?
I mean, and this is that thing, right? It kind of, it's like that can give me convenience or give me death, you know? Like he kind of started to get the lesson. But this is still a guy who feels kind of entitled and kind of wants it. He wants them to hand him all of the things he needs. And he's starting to talk about, oh, I want to do it my way this time.
Yeah.
But to your point, you could do that with this Tony Rock Hudson identity.
Yeah, that's a pretty good place to start, right? I'm a super hot Malibu artist.
Yeah.
Go do good in the community.
You
Go out
don't
to
need
bars,
a
you'll
whole
meet
new
people.
life.
You don't need
You
anything.
could create a new life.
He has every tool he needs to take the lessons from his wife. I didn't know if the movie was saying that once you make contact with your old life, that you have to be replaced.
Yeah. Yeah,
or
maybe.
That if you don't buy in, you become an economic dead end. Or the fact that he never recommended another person. Because we never see the fate of his friend, right? Who's, says that they are tied together. That if you don't pass this on to someone else and you go back to your old family, maybe those are just like contractually you're done. Like you're out now. So
I assume everyone in that waiting room is going to become a cadaver for use.
Yeah.
In the cycle.
Well, because they say something when his friend gets called, like, we found a match finally.
Yes.
So maybe, they're just passing that to the next guy. Right? These are the cadavers they're finding. And how they can so easily, the cadaver procurement team or whatever they say.
Yep.
It's bizarre, though, that just sitting in the waiting room, that I don't know if that set piece ever fully connected in my mind. What the kind of narrative impetus for that was. Why are all of these guys not back out there trying? And I get it's a story about unfulfillment and trying to find easy fixes to a lifetime of unhappiness, right?
Yeah.
Why not send them back out, right? Other than like they've broken the contract. I don't know. I never pieced that together in my mind.
Yeah. Well, I mean, think of the company just from a, cynically. The company needs the cadavers to keep this cycle going, right?
Yeah, Malibu mansions are not cheap, dude.
Right. The company looks at these guys. They washed out. They can't make it on their own. They clearly didn't really learn the real lesson here about making your own life and taking some ownership of the things you do and the way you live. These guys washed out. It doesn't matter how many times we rebirth them. He's going to be back here.
Yeah.
They're a commodity to us. They're another cadaver that we use for the next guy that's going to pay us the $30,000.
Yeah, in a way it gets back to what the wife said, right? Is that these are men who have died long ago. They gave up their life pursuit. It's something I'm kind of hyper aware of in my life, right? Like I'm still making movies and trying, and you would think that at a certain age you're like, dude, it hasn't happened. It's that old Hollywood saying, if you could have been, you would have been. And you're always confronting the horror of that. And you're like, yeah, maybe I'm just not the guy that can do it. Like maybe we can just get like our little indie movie done and that'll be the end of the road. You don't fucking know. But the way I look at it is if I wasn't doing this or the podcast or this kind of stuff, what would be like my pursuit?
Right.
Just going to work, coming home and binging whatever show until I die of old age. I think it is important to have these things that you are chasing, right? And you get that with fam. Like I have a wife and kids and that's, awesome. And I get to watch them grow and start their own journeys. But I think a lot of parents make that mistake where you're like, I live my life only for my kids. And you're like, that's a terrible way. I live my life so that my kids see that I am chasing something, that they're, go for it, fight for it, put in a lot of extra work. And so there is these men who have all died, these men that were all Ivy Leaguer, like they were all Ivy Leaguers. They were all doing good. There wasn't the checkbox of like, this was missing other than it's not money. It's not a title. Like they're not fulfilled. And I think one of the saddest things is when, we go back to The Office and he's talking to Colonel Sanders and he just goes, I may not have ever had a dream. Yeah. Like maybe he's one of those people who just never sat and thought like, what's the dream? Here's what I have to do at every step. I have to get good grades. I have to make the team. I have to go to Princeton or Harvard, wherever the fuck they went. I have to go work at this bank. I have to put in hours and crush. I have to get married and have a kid. And he looks up too late because he's like, maybe I'll be a painter or a tennis pro or like what he never identifies for us what would have been the thing that made him happy. We never see him in Malibu enjoying painting. Like, just like, oh, this is something I'm kind of interested in. Right? Like, imagine a life where they said, Carmelita, your hidden passion is sculpture.
Sure.
And someone just gave you like an awesome new body and a mansion and just said, here, just sculpt all day. Like, you already have a career in it. Just have fun. He never fucking has fun. He doesn't enjoy it. And I think that idea of, especially in this era, the American man who is like the breadwinner and like, there's a lot of like bullshit that was tied into that era for men. The idea of just like this whole generation, like my dad's generation and on, that just never had a dream. Or at least not one that they maybe smothered in the cradle, right?
Right.
Like my dad wanted to like have his own like house building business, right? And he kept fighting for it until eventually like it just didn't happen, right? And it sucked. He built a lot of houses, but it just, in the end, it like he lost the battle. But at least he tried. But a lot of people don't even have that.
No.
I think nowadays we're a little better about that.
Yeah.
Because I think the definition of successfully chasing your dream, I think with, you know, one of the good things about social media and the kind of we all are a little brand is like, all right, if you're a dad who just really likes handcrafting leather saddles.
Yeah.
There's an audience for that. People that appreciate a skill or something. You can share something with a smaller audience, but like it's there. So I think one of the nefarious things of this era, and it gets back to this kind of black and white buttoned up suits thing, it's just that suffocation. And the fact that the movie never lets us see him enjoy a dream. Right? It's kind of giving away the game the whole movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that is an interesting piece. This comes out in 1966. It's based on a novel from 1963. So you got to think this is right before the biggest years of the civil rights movement, the sexual revolution. Mm-hmm. Like there's a lot, it's before the Summer of Love, but like just before. So there's all of these, they're moving towards these big social upheavals. Mm-hmm. And these are always the times where people feel like they don't know where they fit. You're part of the old way of doing things. Are you ready to embrace the new way of doing things? Are you going to be part of the revolution or part of the counter revolution? Because there's always both, you know? And I think in that respect, this is an interesting film for people to watch today, because we're so polarized right now. And there's people who want, like, there's some people who are not happy that gender roles are so fluid now.
Yeah, weirdly, this feels like the conservative era they want to go back to. And then you're like, but no one was fucking happy back then.
They weren't happy.
Yeah, they were not happy, dude.
And in this movie, we're seeing this from the husband, Arthur's perspective, but his wife clearly was not happy either.
No, she's just sitting alone in her cold little twin bed. Like, does that seem awesome to you?
Yeah. And in an era when a woman's not supposed to express her sexuality, like, yeah, there's a lot here. So I think this is a really interesting film.
This whole take on crafting your identity, what is identity, how easy it is to switch identity, the constant like in our face of one man and then reflections of another.
Yeah.
I think that's something that's I think it's one of the nice things about today is that, again, social media is probably one of the greatest poisons infected upon us as a species ever. Right? And it really gets back to our root sin, which is kind of money and capitalism, right? All of our sins boil from that. And social media is an extension of that, right? That you are important and you can be commoditized as an individual person, right? We feel like we are the creators now and we can take out the studios and whatever. No, there's still someone running that app and this and that and has control algorithmically.
Yes.
So it is this nefarious kind of rat race that we always find ourselves in. But there are people who never had voice that do now.
Yes.
And there are those of us with open ears that never had a chance to hear those things that do now. So there is, you know, that is something that we are, you know, hopefully better at today than we were in this time. And I think this movie kind of captures that horror of what if you try to be what you think everyone would be jealous of and it doesn't work. And how many times do you reinvent yourself? And what is reinvention of self without being true to yourself?
Yeah.
Right? It has a lot. It's a deeper subtextual chasm than I think it appears on the surface as just kind of this fun Twilight Zone episode.
No, totally. Well, and you're touching on something kind of how this is still relevant. Today, so much of our lives is happening online.
Yeah.
Virtually, digitally.
Yeah.
You don't have to go under the scalpel.
Oh yeah, the filters will take care of that now.
Use a filter. And you can, you hear those stories.
Filters and lights, man, that'll do a lot of work.
Yeah, you hear those stories of folks who, like influencers who pose for pictures and it looks like they're traveling to these exotic locations, but it's all staged.
I read a whole article about one of the trends is they now have companies that design fake like sets that look like private jets.
Yeah.
But they're just sets for influencers to go in and take pictures. Like they're
right.
in a private jet.
Yes.
But they're not.
Right. These constructed identities.
Or imagine like, hey, I'm going to Italy for my vacation and all you're doing is watching yourself on your own phone, shaking around and you know, doing the thing. But imagine going somewhere like that and you're not really there or participating. It's kind of one of the horrifying things that, again, I love the use of mirrors and reflective surfaces in this movie.
Yeah.
But it's the constant, I think one of the saddest things you watch in today, and I know it sounds hypocritical because we do a podcast and, you know, all this shit, like we're begging people to listen and watch us all the time. But there is something about watching all of these videos and it's just people looking at themselves in their own phone.
Right.
And this kind of, you know, Greek mythological scale tragedy that has befallen on us, right? Like that used to just be, what's her name? Like Cassiopeia or whatever. Now it's all of us. Now we're all like that. You know, we all are looking into the mirror so long and what are we losing?
And everyone's crafting a reflection, what they want to project.
Yeah. It is, there's such an immediate falsehood to so much of it.
Yeah.
And again, I think this movie gets at these kind of trappings, right? The allure of the money and the house and if other people feel a certain way about you, that'll be enough. And I think we see this man in the end just screaming into the void.
Yeah.
As he's gagged and dragged in, and they're just like, sorry, it ends this way. And the last thing we see is a memory of him with his kid on the beach. A kid we never see in the film, which I think is another great choice.
It is.
But his last memory is just, man, I was carrying that kid on my shoulder on the beach, and we were as happy as anyone could be for a moment. And then it distorts as the drill enters his cranium.
Yeah. Why wasn't that enough?
Well, why is nothing ever enough for any of us, right?
Exactly. Totally.
That gets back to this life dysmorphia, right? If you're a person who lives to buy the thing that'll make your life happy, that's an unwinnable game. Someone will always buy more or bigger or better. Someone will always have more money, right? And I think so many of us get caught in that game. We are trained by society to be little consumers.
Yeah.
That's how
buy more, have more, bigger, better.
Yes. This is how the American company works, right? Very much like the company in this movie. Because you watch the movie and like one of the questions I was like, this is a brilliant question that I don't have a great answer to. Do you think Colonel Sanders went under the knife at one point? And if not, why? He's an old man. He had a dream. Why not go under and be younger and try it again? Why not be I'm not only the president, I'm a client, right? That old fucking hair loss company.
I don't think he was.
So if he doesn't even believe, right? He was, because he's chasing his dream by building the company so he doesn't need the new thing.
Right.
But also by running this company, he has to inherently shrink himself and be different and changed.
Yeah.
What does that say?
I know. Yeah. Well, and it's interesting.
Like, do you think the guy who runs Hormel Chili eats Hormel chili? Or you think he's eating better than that? Like, you know what I mean?
He's probably eating better than that. Yeah, I mean, I love when poor Arthur / Tony thinks that he's been called up and they're going to rebirth him.
Mm-hmm.
And the old man comes in and tells him the history of the company, why he started it, that he wanted to give people happiness. And, he had this idealistic dream of what he could give to humanity.
Yeah, he says, I am waging a war against human misery.
Yeah.
But that's not the movie we watch.
It's not, no. And then he talks about how, the company changed. They took on board members. Now you have to answer to the board. Now there's a bottom line. It's not just about this beautiful idea of eradicating human misery.
Yeah, he's not the Zoltar machine from Big anymore, just granting wishes.
No.
Now he's got to make the economic choice that one of the best works they produced, disposed.
Yeah.
Disposed.
Yeah.
It is.
And his surprise, he talks about his surprise that it failed when it started to fail.
Yeah.
Well,
it's like the Matrix, right? When they say we lost entire crops of humans because we made a utopia and the human mind rejected it.
Yes.
Right? And this gets back into that kind of, not body, but mental dysmorphia, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are trained now that we don't have to, when we go out of our house, we're not dodging pterodactyls and shit, or saber-toothed beasts that want to rip us apart.
Yes.
We invent that shit everywhere. Right? Our body still has a biological and evolutionary pull towards scarcity.
Mm-hmm.
But now today it feels like scarcity of attention.
Yeah.
Right? Scarcity of control of our own authorship of self.
Yeah.
And you see people who fight back against that, right? Be they transgender or whatnot. They're like, I'm taking control of my story. And you see other people hate that.
Yes.
It is this. It is funny because, again, the movie still has the exact same potency. It feels like a story about a middle-aged rich white man becoming a different middle-aged white man would not be profound or interesting. Like, you went from, like, rich white guy to just rich white guy who now gets to do grape orgies.
And who's really attractive.
Yeah, who's way more attractive. Like, stunningly attractive. I think Rock Hudson in this movie, his performance is fucking incredible.
It's amazing. And
it doesn't feel like a Rock Hudson performance.
No, I was reading up that, Kirk Douglas was up for this. Like, there were some other names. Laurence Olivier was up for this. Rock Hudson wanted to do it. And that, I don't know if it was his agent or some people in his life were like, I don't think you should do this movie.
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I want to do this. I'm interested in the story. And it sounded like he wanted to get away from everyone knowing him as the rom-com leading man.
Well, imagine him too. Like, that's your bread and butter.
Yes.
Is I'm this ultra handsome leading man, but I'm aging.
Mm-hmm.
My body is sagging and withering. Like, this is a reality. Right. And so you watch him and he's like, what's going to happen to me when that starts to go?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And he pulls like a real true deep despair out of this performance.
Yeah. No,
and
he's
at the
amazing.
End, even when he was just screaming on that table, you're like, audiences probably had never really seen Rock Hudson do that.
Yeah.
Just scream into the void as this helpless, slab of meat.
I love the scene in the Bacchanal. We talked about it a little bit, but I love that scene because there's this whole, at first, he's just kind of taking in this whole scene, all these people wearing laurel wreaths and getting naked, and you see him become more and more distressed.
Mm-hmm.
He's uncomfortable. He doesn't like this, all this freedom and inhibition. Yeah. And when the woman he's with, Nora, when she strips down and gets in the tub to crush it, he's just like freaking out. And the performance Rock Hudson gives of this tumult of emotions. And then once they pull him in and he's shrieking and yelling and he's just flipping out until
he's trying to be in control and has to realize he's not, as he's physically, because Rock Hudson's a giant dude.
He is. He's a
And
big
he
guy.
gets thrown into that tub like he's nothing.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah,
like,
he's carried with this
yeah,
wave.
how many people would it take to like pick me up against my will and put me in a tub? You're like, a lot. They seem to throw him in with ease.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot
it's
of drunk proto
this visual
hippies.
reminder. Yeah, all these skinny, wafy hippies. I was like, come on. It'd take at least 10 of them to throw me in. No, but it's almost, he's fighting so hard for control, but it's a moment that, as if the party is a living thing.
Yes.
And it's like, you can't be in control.
No.
Because even in the thing, he's like, Nora, as grapes are getting splashed on him. It's this really visceral, in-your-face moment.
It's cool. I love it.
And it's even so subtle. Like, it's not even the camera stops and gets, like, just a smile. It's like, through the chaos, you're like, oh, he's like, losing it. He's distressed. He's smiling. Oh, he's liking it now. Oh, he's raging now. Right?
Yeah.
As if you took my dad and put him in a young, like, Chad's body and put him at Coachella. My dad's not all of a sudden going to be stoked to be at Coachella.
No.
Right? He's still an old dude. Right? He's like, her. You know, you can't just change the face and then be like, yeah, go enjoy Coachella. Right? He'd still see the tits flapper. I'd be like, you know?
No.
Like, yeah, that would still be an emotional roller coaster for him. Right? Because
Absolutely.
the movie gets back to, you still are what you are.
Yes.
You can change everything at the very core.
Yes.
That is the thing that no scalpel can reach. And I think the movie does a great job of always coming back to that place.
Yes.
And even the moment when he realizes all he's gained, but then he's like, oh, it's a facade. They're all company people. And my super hot neighbor, like, gift from the gods, she doesn't really like me at all. There's a dripping disdain for him when she comes into that bedroom. And him kind of having this like weird indignation that it's all false, even though he changed his whole identity and is inherently a falsehood himself.
Yes.
But he's mad that his reality no longer is real enough, that it sends him running back to a wife and kids that he doesn't seem to have missed at all. No. But again, the movie's kind of showing us is that core problem always exists. They used to say this in church to me when I was a kid. It's like one of those great like church bullshit lines. They're like, you can put that on like a little like, hand knitted, piece of art on a wall, and everyone's like,
right.
Yep, that makes sense.
A crochet.
Yeah. God made you with a God-shaped hole in your heart that only he can fill. And I was like, well, that's pretty fucked up. That's pretty fucked up. It'd be like, my landlord put me in a room and only he can unlock the door. You're like, that's a crime. That's not a good thing. Why is God doing this to me? Right? Why is God so determined for me to not just be happy? Right? And this movie really hammers home, and it becomes this kind of haunting and again, the score for this movie is wonderfully deployed. And so that the movie always is so emotionally tight.
Yeah.
It really kind of sinks you down, and it becomes so horrifying in a way. Right? Real world horrifying. We're not worried about the monster. The monster is his kind of clawing unhappiness. We know that.
Yes. And his inability to realize that it's in him. The answer to his problem is in him. He has to be willing to do something himself within himself. And he just can't see it.
Well, like his neighbor takes him to the party, right? Like he never does anything on his own accord except for go back to the life that he so carelessly threw away. A life that he wasn't even excited to throw away. He just kind of meandered into the office. And I was like, well, I guess. Like he's not like, give me the papers, right?
No.
Like bring me a chick to bang right now. Like he kind of just plods into it. Like he did his whole life. And so it's a movie where it's like watching a Godzilla movie, but you're just watching the people in the stomach get digested. That's what this movie is, right? This is a man who's already been eaten and he's just slowly being digested and realizing that eventually you're going to get shit out. Like that's it. Like there's no happy ending for this man. It's kind of one of the things you watch the movie is you're like, where could this go? I thought what they were going to do is give him some other normal life and he'd just be back to being like a bank teller or a guy who worked at a grocery store. But then it kind of starts to dawn on you when you see the priest and he's kind of reading last rites. You're like,
Yeah.
oh no. But I still actually didn't believe they were going to kill Rock Hudson until that last shot. And you're like, oh my God.
Oh yeah.
He got deleted. Right?
Got deleted.
He willingly chose to kill himself, and now they can do it pretty cavalierly.
Yeah.
Right? The armor of the life he had built and the questions that would be asked are gone.
Right.
It's a horrifying movie. And I think to your point,
Yeah.
the stage we find ourselves in our life and in our world, this movie almost feels perfectly designed to attack me right now at this age in this
Right.
year, right?
Yeah.
In this world that I live in.
Absolutely.
And I'm always impressed with movies from bygone. I think that's the thing, right? Great art is art that lives and is reborn through generations.
Yes.
This movie does that. Like, this movie has taken on new meanings, having probably watched it now than in 66. And Frankenheimer, just his masterful orchestration of this movie and the way he deploys filmmaking tools. For a movie that's fairly small in scale, it's so deeply cinematic.
Yes, very
and the
cinematic.
visual language is so profound. Yeah.
The feeling of it is so
Yes, that's
like you
the
feel
word.
immersed, you know?
There are so
Like,
few movies that emotionally immerse you
yes.
like
This one does
especially nowadays.
And it's that mixture of James Wong Howe's cinematography, which is just really beautiful and very much
Oh my
like
God, so
what
incredible.
you're seeing makes you feel something, whether it's tension, disorientation, sadness, happiness, chaos, the chaos of the party. Jerry Goldsmith's score, which really plays up
Incredible score.
all the emotions. It's all of it together is that magic that Film Alchemist is here to talk about.
It is.
The magic is in this movie.
It's a movie with great parts that still is somehow better than the sum of its parts.
Yeah.
Like, it is just a staggeringly impressive movie to me.
It is.
Again, I had never seen this. This will it'd be hard for me to imagine I find another movie this year that I haven't seen that would be higher on my first time.
I didn't know this was your
list.
first time.
First time. Never seen it. I'm reading
exciting.
that Tarantino book too, the Cinema Speculations on 70 Cinema. There are a lot of great movies in there that he writes about. They're like, I want to see that for the first. Like, somehow I've never seen The Wild Bunch, right? Like, and it happens, right? When you're a cinephile, you watch all this stuff, and we all have these big blind spots. They're like just shit we missed.
Yes.
Right? Like, I watch a shitload of horror movies, right? So, like, that means that they're classics I haven't found. And for me, it's always so fucking exciting when you, like, I don't even know if I had heard of this movie. Right? Like, it was just a movie. When you said it, I was like, maybe I've seen that. And then I looked at it. I was like, I've never. This has never been in my orbit. And it's such a reaffirming thing. I think also as a cinephile, you watch so much shit that is just completely empty calories, vacuous. You're like, why? Someday when I'm dying, I'm going to be like, I wish I had 5 extra years of my life where I didn't watch this collection of useless things, right?
Yeah.
It's inevitable. Yeah, like I've wasted a lot of time on movies that did not deserve my time. So when you find something like this that so reignites like the essence of being alive, it makes you think about, man, I got to be more appreciative of where I am in life and enjoy the life I have now and the pursuits that I am lucky enough to still battle every day, even when it feels rough. So that's the thing when like a movie reaffirms your humanity and your soul.
Yes.
It's such a rare thing, and this movie is just so I'm impressive. I don't even know another word for it. I can't think. I mean, it's just profound.
It really
I don't know.
is.
I can't think of the proper adjective that's going to sum up such a impressive movie in one word. I'm not that good of a writer.
I'm not that far behind you. I saw it for the first time in recent years, maybe in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And it was baffling to me. Anytime you mention Rock Hudson, Seconds should be one of the first films that gets mentioned.
Oh, for sure. It's probably not the thing that like made him iconic Rock Hudson, but I doubt he's got 3 more performances more impressive than this.
Yes. Like,
2?
it's so impressive. It's so impressive.
I am not a Rock Hudson scholar, but I would be shocked if he's got a lot of performances as good as this one.
As good as this.
And not because, he's not a good actor, but because this fucking performance is incredible. And this piece is incredible.
The writing, the role gives him something meaty, something juicy to do, to work with.
Yes.
To embody. Yeah, this movie's incredible. I love it. This was one of those like love at first watch. First time I watched this a couple years ago, it was like, this is amazing.
I just kind of knew like right away with that train opening. I was like, oh fuck yeah. Like I'm really into this. And then it becomes a completely different wild movie that I would never have predicted. And I just kept loving it with every kind of turn of the screw. Wonderful movie. An absolute wonderful movie. I'm also at that age now, like I'm old enough that like I've seen a lot of movies.
Yes.
But I don't remember them, right? It's I think I forget who said it, if it was Hemingway, right? Where he's like, I don't remember all of the books I've read, just like I don't remember all of the meals I ate, but they sustained me anyhow. Yes. I'm at that point with movies where it's like, I've seen all the shit that you're talking about, but like so many that like I can't encyclopedia like pull them out of my mind and be like, this scene and that. So I'm having to rewatch shit that I loved and re-experiencing it so it can still be in there somewhere. It's hard, man. There's just too much great stuff in life.
I know. I know. We just
not enough time.
We take in everything we can. We do what we can.
That's right.
And
we need to find a way to not sleep and just use our nighttime hours to consume films and art.
I know.
And then during the day we do the toil.
I've had these thoughts like, how wonderful would it be if I didn't have to eat or sleep?
I would give up eating if it meant that I had like a Chris Hemsworth body. I don't want to give up eating and then look like Christian Bale in The Machinist.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question for you, and each and every person is wonderful just the way you are.
Yeah.
But I'm going to ask you.
Yeah.
If the company blackmailed you.
Yeah.
And we're like, all right, you're going under the knife. We're going to give you this other person's life. Nice. And you get to look like whatever celebrity, who would it be?
Ooh, look like a celeb?
Yeah, if you went through what Arthur went through and you go under, the company blackmails you into doing this thing and they put you under and you have the surgery and you wake up. He woke up looking like Rock Hudson.
That's pretty thick.
Who would you want to be?
Let me be on record because my wife is a listener. I would not take the company's deal because I don't think I could stand to give up the wife and kids.
No,
unlike
of course
this
not.
guy, I actually really enjoy my time with my family.
Yes.
My dog, right? Like I wouldn't want to give up my dog, right?
No.
There are things in my life I want to give up. If I got to just come home, because then you're like, maybe I'd ask her and she'd say Chris Hemsworth. She'd want me to come home like Chris Hemsworth. I kind of would like to have a more interesting look.
Oh.
So maybe like a prime Vincent Cassel.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I want to be hot and I want to be ripped, but I also want to look.
But he's
unique.
interesting.
Yeah. I don't want to just look like every other buff hot guy.
I hear you.
I want to have some distinguishing feats, right?
Yes.
Like even like prime Willem Dafoe. Right? Like I want to look, I want to have an interesting look about me.
No, that's admirable.
That's what I would go for probably. I still want the perfect body. Right? Like a Hemsworth body with a Willem Dafoe head is probably what I would ask for. But yeah, do you have one? Have you already picked your second?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, of living people, Salma Hayek, are you kidding me?
Oh, dude, what a choice. See, I was thinking if I was a lady, it'd be Monica Bellucci.
Oh, yeah. I've been saying this ever since
David
Desperado.
Duchovny would be a good one, right? Like I always was in love with, I wanted to be Agent Mulder when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And find my Scully. So maybe that's what, it's hard. Because you could get the David Duchovny body and then just hit the gym and bulk up.
Right.
But then does he not become David Duchovny anymore?
Right.
Right? If Mulder's arms are bursting out of his, government issued white shirts, is that the Mulder I fell in love with? This is the thing I think we're learning.
Also, like when you embody that person, like okay, let's say I get to be Salma Hayek for a day.
Oh, yeah. I think a lot of people have had that fantasy, yeah.
Do I want to deal with some of the bullshit that Salma Hayek has to deal with?
See, this is what I mean. It's hard. And I think what the movie's telling us is that it's not going to be as awesome as you think it is.
No,
because then also, if I become David Duchovny, the world doesn't have a David Duchovny. What if I fuck up the X-Files and it gets canceled after one season? You know what I mean?
That would break my heart. That would break my heart.
That would break my
X-Files
heart.
Is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah, what if I became Willem Dafoe and I was just so jacked
right,
that then I don't get to see Poor Things or The Lighthouse or any of his other great movies?
Yeah.
Because I just had to get so jacked. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's what the movie's trying to remind us is just be happy with where you are. And if you're not, work on that from the middle out.
Yes. Yes. And that's an important thing here, because I think it's easy to look at a story like this, kind of the broad strokes, and say, oh, they're telling you to stay in your lane. No.
This guy had a lot of work to do to be happy, but it should have started by pushing those two twin beds together.
On the inside, yes.
Listening to your wife, right?
Yes. Connect with the people in your life.
Stop being a dickhead.
Maybe work if you can, because some people financially can't, but if you can, maybe don't take on that extra late night at the office. Go home and paint.
Yeah. Well,
have a nice dinner with your loved ones.
Problem, right? Is that I love that the transformative nature of that show and seeing someone get everything and like, wow, good for this person. You're like, I should do that in my life. You're like, oh, I can't do like $200,000 worth of renovations on my house in a week, or buy all those clothes. Like there is a reality to that. But I think what the movie's saying is you don't need that shit, right? Start with talking to your wife. Go for a walk with your wife. How can we fix this?
Yeah, have some real friends. Like he hadn't talked to this
your
college guy.
Daughter. Yeah, why aren't you still playing tennis with people, right? Like, that's the kind of shit. Work on yourself from the inside out. That's it. That's it for Seconds. What a wonderful movie. We've saved the biggest, most bombastic Pod Gets a New Face movie. Whereas this one is very introspective and forces deep thought. The movie Face Off with Nick Cage and John Travolta does not.
No.
This is kind of the new face wish fulfillment, run rampant. Redlining, as it were, through an entire film.
Yes. And it was, this was another opportunity for me to sneak in a Nicolas Cage movie.
It's one that I actually can't believe we had never gotten to. It's like one of the Nicolas Cage movies. It's so good. So thank you again. Follow Carmelita online at Carmelita Says Everywhere. Well, really Twitter and Letterboxd, right? That's the main two places. You'll be happy that you did. Thank you for being here with us today. Go to patreon.com/filmalchemistpod to support the show. Please, please, please. The YouTube Film Alchemist, the email filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials. Please share, help us out, do all the algorithm stuff. We appreciate it. 5-star ratings and reviews. Go to misfitparade.net to join the parade in case we're in a town near you. You can come see our film, Sugar Tits, that's out on the festival circuit. You can go to our YouTube and watch some of the other stuff. We've been, slowly building up to the feature that we've started now. So lots of good stuff. I guess I can say the feature on here, right? It's my show. We're making an anthology horror film called Mr. Cream Jeans Hidey Hole.
That's amazing.
Of quasi-perverse sexual horror tales.
I love this.
Yeah, I will be playing the titular Mr. Cream Jeans.
Of course you are.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. Misfit Parade's on the move. We're working hard. We appreciate it. Also be on the lookout over at Looper for some video content featuring yours truly. More than anything, thanks for your time, guys. We will see you for Face Off, the grand finale of the Pod Gets a New Face month with our third host, Carmelita Valdez.